The Transportation Committee meeting on 5/8/24 is set to begin. All members present, including Alderwoman Rhonda Pimdale Charles and Alderman Savage, myself. At this time, I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, agenda approved. And we have minutes from our March 13th, 2024 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Great. We have several updates on our agenda today, and we are going to start with an update from Bird, and then directly after that, we'll do the Transportation Board
Natalie
update.
needs before her mic. She needs you to play. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I believe we have Jeremy Lynch from Bird with us. That'd be great, thank you. If you could just say your name and company title.
Jeremy Lynch, Bird.
Okay.
Yeah. That's on.
All right, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming in.
Of course.
What do you have for us today?
Well, I want to give you an update on, since the last update I think Chris gave was in July of last year. So I thought it would be appropriate to come in person and give you basically a full rundown of last year's total rides and what we saw as far as data goes, and then basically a brief update of this year so far. And then some of the things I thought that we could focus on, not only from Bird, but would also with help from the city as well. In some of the programs that we have in place that really not been able to be taken advantage of as they should to help with riders and particular discounts that we can offer and things of that nature.
Thank you.
So again, everyone knows what Bird is, a dockless electric micromobility company. A lot of what we try to do is really reduce congestion and over-reliance on cars. In fact, I was at McGarvey's talking to an employee there, and he would ride it back and forth from Parole to go to work. And then, in fact, in another case, he said they ride back from where they park their cars to go to work at City Dock because they can't park down here. They ride from Eastport. So those kind of instances are perfect examples of how micromobility can be utilized by a city big and small and come to the aid of employees, residents, and also anybody that comes to town for tourism as well. Again, just another example of that first mile, last mile. Again, I don't think we've explored all the things we possibly can over the course of the last year. So I think we have some work to do to basically, not only from an operations side, but also from making sure, working with Eric, Brian, and Casey to make sure we get basically the vehicles in the right locations. Not just picking low-hanging fruit, as it were. Going to areas where we haven't been before. And that's what interpreting the data and basically seeing where consistent rides happen. And I have a couple of slides at the end that will give you an idea that from year to year, the rides really haven't changed where they've begun and where they've ended. And we need to expand that out and make those rides more populous in areas where folks can take advantage. So I don't know if you've heard, I know I sent all the information. This is a slide you all can read later, but we declared Chapter 11. Bless you. We declared Chapter 11, I believe in February. And the reason why is we were basically getting rid of a large debt that we had in place since 2018, I believe, 2018, early 19. A company wanted to take us private, and one of the reasons that they wanted to do that was, the only reason we do that is if we declared Chapter 11, got rid of that debt, they'd acquire us, take us back to private. And that's what they did. So they acquired both Bird and Spin, the two micromobility companies. We came out of Chapter 11 about a month and change ago. A new parent company is called Third Lane Mobility. We're still operating as we were in all of our markets across the world. Nothing has changed. We haven't shut anything down. And in fact, we've launched, the reason why as tan as I am, I've been launching North Carolina cities, a couple of North Carolina cities over the past 3 weeks. We've launched the University of Illinois, a couple cities in Canada, and as well as a couple markets in Italy. So we are still moving forward Everything is great for us. We're very financially stable. So I just wanted to make sure that if you hadn't seen anything in the news, that's kind of give you an update on where we are financially. So this is basically some of the metrics from last year. So on the column on the left, so there are a total of 52,000 miles ridden on 40,000 rides, which is about 2.1 rides per rider. The average minute ride is 10 minutes, which kind of surprised me. Normally in a community this small and this compact, I would think that would be a much lower number. But what that tells me is that the gentleman from McGarvey's, that's a long ride out to Parole. And so people are using it for longer distance rides when normally it's a short distance. So you can tell it's not necessarily super touristy because you can get anywhere in 10 minutes at 15 miles an hour pretty fast around here in areas where someone from out of town would stay. So they're not all following into the trap of it's all tourist travel. A lot of this is residential use because those 10-minute rides, that's a haul to get someplace. So that's a good sign that residents are using it. The average minute per ride is up. The unique users, basically 24,000, which means that of those miles that are ridden, most of those people are riding far more 2 to 3 to 4 times a day. So you're getting more of the consistent riders, people riding multiple times as opposed to single riders, which is also very good. We averaged about 64 scooters, what we call in PROW, P-R-O-W. And what that really means is that on average, any given day, there was 64 available vehicles out. The most we had was in the middle of the summer last year. We averaged just over 100 for a few days in a row. I'd like to see that number higher. I know right now, I don't think there are 30 vehicles out in the street right now. So we need to get that number up because the rides are going to happen. And this obviously fluctuates because it's seasonal. You're going to get far more rides in April and May than March and February. But again, making sure we take advantage of that and get those scooters out and available. The rides we're currently seeing now that Eric and the guys have access to show that we're getting between 3, 2, and high 1 points, 1.7, 1.8 rides per day, which means there are a lot of rides happening on the scooters that are out there. So the more bikes and scooters we get out there, the more rides are going to get taken. So we need to get our ops team together to get more rides out there so folks can ride as they should. So the commuter riders and commuter rides it's not an exact science. It's basically what we determine rides between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. we call those commuter riders. It's about 4,800 rides happened last year between that time frame. Again, something that needs to, I think, can go up because a lot of people, parking is at a premium here. Having lived here years ago, it is definitely at a premium. And so having to get more commuter riders in, especially the staff, everybody that works in the retail businesses down here, certainly have trouble getting in. So making sure that we have the vehicles available for them at their different hours will be helpful as well. As far as what's happening this year, again, 7,000 miles, about 6,400 rides, 1.5. And again, that's more attributed to the lack of scooters on the street or the scooters and bikes, so not as many. But the average minute per ride is still at almost 10, which is, again, tells me a lot more residents are using the vehicles than the folks just coming here for a weekend or so. Unique riders, again, 4,319. The average scooters, though, is only about 38. And so my ops team has been working with the fleet manager locally to get more scooters out there, and it's more or less his repairs that are down that he's got to get on top of that to get the fleet in better service to get it out. So that's kind of where we sit with the numbers from last year and currently from this year.
And excuse me, are these just scooters or is it scooters and bikes?
Both scooters and bikes.
Thank you.
So this is an interesting slide. This is basically a 24-hour clock, basically giving the rides per hour. And as you can see, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, not a lot of rides happening at that hour. What we mostly see is rides happening at start to uptick, to 5 and 6 o'clock hour, peaking at the 8 and 9 o'clock hour. And then the 11 or the 10 o'clock hour and then 11 dropping down. And then obviously at midnight, again, it drops off pretty precipitously then after that as well. So it's odd that people are more using it after between that 6 and 9 time frame. And I kind of want to see some of that graph build between, 7 and 10. We get more uses at the beginnings of the day, so you get more people using them, because clearly people are using them to ride home or ride around at that time. Generally, if you're riding around 10 or 11 o'clock, you're going someplace. You're going home. And so that's a good thing to see, but again, I'd like to see that a little more evened out as we get toward the earlier hours of the day. And again, this is kind of an eye chart too, but this is from June 24th of 2023. If it were darker, you get a much better impression of this. And you'll be able to see it when you have it on your own laptop to see the areas of town that are concentrated in. So the lighter, like the peach color, are where the rides are originating. And this is a busy day last year. 355 rides on June 24th. And as you can see, there's some rides that end up out in the parole area, some in the Georgetown East area, Eastport, those are down, yeah.
What are the two different dots, the colored dots then?
So that's the ride endings are the red. Rides ending are the red, and the rides beginning are the peach.
There's no rides ending in your name.
And so what this I'll work with the fellows on is basically knowing those areas of confluence and areas that we can concentrate on and get better ridership from. And like I'd said, with the gentleman from McGarvey's, is basically, we don't have, you can see from that map right there are not a lot of scooters that began their ride there that day at all. And there's certainly areas where you can do that. And then there are areas of, equity areas that I'm sure can be serviced as well that we simply haven't had there. And this is what that driving to make sure that we put those vehicles in those areas where they can be utilized and increase away from just, you can see that all downtown. That's where it's all those rides are taking place. But there are people that are riding further out, that if we continue to do that, you probably get more riders there, but they're not, simply because there's only one scooter out there that day, or two. And two people that ride it, the 3 through 10, you're just gonna okay, why would I download that app? Because there's nothing ever here. So again, it's really just trying to get more scooters in those areas to get people to see that the vehicles are available and they can ride them to where they need to go into town.
And do you have data on whether it's a scooter or a bike, and the farther out it is it more often a bike versus the scooter, or?
Normally it would be, because the scooter rides, any distances on scooter rides, it kind of gets tedious after a while.
Right.
In California, we'd ride from 7 miles away to the office in Venice, and that's a long way on a scooter. Bike rides inherently are for longer rides. So I do have data that I can provide for that, and it probably will show you that the bike rides are far, far greater and longer.
And at the beginning of the meeting, I failed to recognize my colleague, Alderwoman Tierney. She has a question.
That's fine.
Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you explain the commuter logistics, if you will? I'm trying to get the story here. You're saying that people use it to commute, right? So I'm commuting to McGarvey's. Is it a morning commute? Do they leave it there and then pick it up somewhere else? What is the logistic there?
Yes. So what we try to do is put it in places where we know people are going to be, in the morning. So
There
apartment
we go.
buildings, condo complexes, any place where people, and like the impromptu park and ride that this gentleman was talking about, where they park there and they all go in together.
Yeah.
Those kind of places are where we situate scooters at particular in the morning. So then they would ride into work. The objective then would be thinking and finding out from at the end of the day to place scooters in areas where at the end of the day you put them more in the city dock. That way people can ride them back out to where they came from.
So you actually do that
Oh, yeah.
with your truck and
Yeah, that's part of what we teach the fleet managers, is that rebalancing is really where it's what you really have to do. You have to put the scooters where those people are going to be.
that's
And
really
the bikes. You
that's
don't.
what- yeah.
That's the thing, and that's kind of just through, a program matures after a couple of years, more than a year, because then you know where they're going to end up, where they're going to begin, and so you can start putting those vehicles in those spots, because then you'll just elicit rides.
That's
Plus-
excellent,
yeah.
because I thought originally you were just picking them up at night and, but you're actually seeing what the movement is and accommodating it. That's great, yeah.
Exactly, and one of the things we try to, it's when we hire those fleet managers, one of the things we look for someone who's entrepreneurial, because they get a portion of the revenue off of every ride. So the more they're out working, rebalancing, making sure they're in places where they're going to get rides, like for any event, boat show, anytime that's any fair, anything that goes on, concerts, things like that, that's where they make hay, because then they can realize they'll put scooters or bikes in places where people are going to drive into that event, and then at the end of the event, congregate them where people are coming out so they can pick them up and ride them back to where they may have parked their cars. So thinking in those terms are what we really try to push through with them and make sure they understand it, that the better they do of that, and not just, like I said, picking low-hanging fruit, just putting them all downtown. If you're there, you drove there or something else, you want to basically get both sides of the morning and the evening. Yes?
Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, since we're on that topic, that was one, and I am a user of Bird. I've used it on a number of occasions. But I did have a frustration recently after a special event, after the parade, I think. And so, we had a council event, I guess it was the day after, and there were no scooters to be found downtown. And then when I did go to some, we found some. They were either dead of charge. They didn't tell me they were dead of charge, which was a waste of time. We were walking around all over town. It was frustrating with a guest. And then in some cases, we just couldn't find them. They were hidden somewhere in a parking garage. So I don't know if there's something in the app that could, a note that could be added if it's in some kind of sheltered space, like where it is on a multi-level parking area. But so in that situation, it would have been great after we had a big event. And it didn't occur to me because usually we have some right around City Hall, right? It didn't occur to me until the day after the mayor mentioned, we had St. Patrick's Day parade. So everybody probably took them after the parade and went out to their cars, right? Which is what we want them for.
Sure.
But there was no follow-up that night. Nobody collected them to get them charged and redistributed. And it seems like that should really happen after special events.
It should. And that was one of the things that we focused on with our fleet manager at that time, because we were having problems. There weren't a lot of scooters out. In fact, there was 8 to 10 days where there was no vehicles out. So we were in the process of switching that person out. They wanted to stay because there's a performance aspect they have to hit. So, they have to deploy X number percentage of vehicles every day in their fleet. If they don't, they're basically graded on that scale. And so, we were in the process of removing him. We came back, he wanted to come back and continue to do it, so we did it. We stayed with him, and we were helping him repair that fleet, so there were times like that. Besides my information, there is in community mode, in the app on the bottom left-hand corner, that yield sign. You can communicate with us directly about vehicles not being available.
Okay.
You can put in a complaint if its scooter is improperly parked, whatever it is. There's a very step-by-step process in community mode, which basically prompts you to report a scooter that's missing, or just give us in general an idea of what's happening and why that's the case.
Okay. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I love the service, the program. It was
Yeah, but we learned.
frustrating.
That's the good thing is we learn from those mistakes, because that's one of those things that the fleet manager has to learn from. That there's downtime, and then there's the times you have to be up.
Yeah.
And so those events and things like that are the times they need to be active. So
Yeah.
you're right. So if you want to take a look at this, this is from April 26th of this year, 146 rides. The pattern isn't much different than it was a year ago. It's almost the same as far as, that area in Eastport. The Georgetown area has a few down there. And then up as you get up north towards Parole, to get to that area, there are a few up in that area. I'm not sure what's a direct north, the very top of it. But yeah, that area up there, same spots. So that hasn't even changed basically almost in a year where those rides are happening. So we need to take this back to my ops team and make sure that we're deploying in these spots where people are either dropping off or picking up. Because then if someone's dropping a scooter off there, if it's a particular time of day, that means the next morning they may want to ride it right back to where they came from. So those red dots tell us where we can also deploy some people, because that's where someone's ending up with it. And so that's what we also glean from this kind of reporting as well. So this is one of the things that I don't even think there are 25 people signed up in the entire operating area. So community pricing is something that eligible veterans, senior citizens, anybody on state assistance or federal assistance program, they can sign up through the app or through the accessbird.co, and they get 50% off their rides if they basically just go through a quick step-by-step process telling us, proving that they are, and they get 50% off their ride. And I literally think there's less than 25 people that have signed up for this since its inception.
I'm one of those people. So on that, I guess, how much outreach do you do? Like, for example, my ward has a number of senior centers, and I think it'd be great to be able to, if proactively get these out to those communities to help give them an alternative. Because they may not be aware. They may think, oh, this is for the younger people, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they're not aware. And that's, you can tell when people say, because as soon as you make them clearly aware, or find, the avenue really is, the hard avenue is really trying to find the best way to get the word out that this exists. Because unless you have the app, we have no real way of communicating with you.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to get that out. So it would be one of those things, on the city homepage. If there's any community, organizers or events or things like that are happening, it's just a simple flyer that I can have, done up for you to send out, to hand out to people, or just send as like this is basically just an image, a social image, send it out that way. Put it on your social media page, things like that. Those kind of things are the best way to get that out there. And you get people to ride. And again, this is going to motivate all those areas outside of this downtown core where you're going to get those kind of riders, because then they'll be like, wow, it's only going to, a 10-minute ride normally costs me about $6. It's going to be $3.
So do you get demographics as far as, I can't remember when I registered, age, date of birth?
We do. I don't know if we have it set. I'd have to talk to my engineers to see if they can run a query about certain areas of the city and what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm getting at, is if you see an area that has a lot of, for example, seniors that are registered, then it might make sense to have more bikes than you do scooters.
Yeah, I don't know if we go into their home address that much necessarily, in the sense of, if you were just down right here and you downloaded the app and put your information in, if you lived 5 miles from here, but your riding is here, it's sometimes tough to, the overlap is perfect.
Yeah.
Meaning where you are, where a vehicle should be is how that works. But there are areas that, the city is aware of that we can certainly, we can do it basically with, as the GPS works. So, there's an operating zone around the city. And so we can put operating areas in place in like equity zones, let's say, if there are equity zones in the city, or you can even craft them. Let us know where those areas are, and we can basically drape that area with the pricing so that if someone even uses a vehicle in that area, they automatically get the 50% off. Yeah. They don't have to go through the sign-up process. It automatically happens just because they started their ride in that area. So we can do that too. So that's another way to make it easier. It's really dependent upon, like we do that in Baltimore because Baltimore has those mapped out and they're specifically targeting those areas for a lot of other services. But we use that capability in that city because it's far easier because sometimes people they don't want to send us the information, or maybe not access to a computer or a place to upload a PDF to us, things like that. So it's an easier way to get around some of those technology issues.
Yeah.
So they just have to be a registered user already, if we were to do that, where it's automatic.
They'd have to sign up, yes.
They would.
Yep. They sign up more for the insurance and the liability reasons and all that kind of stuff. They have to be a member.
Yeah.
But yeah, yep. Sure.
Oh, sorry.
And last thing, this was the piece that I talked about earlier, was that getting in touch with us, that community mode that's on the right. The bottom left-hand corner of the app is where that exists when you open it up. And that's one of the things that letting us know, riders and non-riders alike, and that can be for anybody. In fact, I've on a lot of university campuses, I have the campus police department have it downloaded so they can report in vehicles, anybody from DPW to the police, anybody. They don't have to, it takes about 20 seconds to report in a scooter or a bike. It's not a lot of effort. If they choose, they can do that as well. And so that's one of the best ways to get in touch with us. And obviously all the other info that is on display on the birds, how you can get in touch with us as well.
Go ahead.
And that was,
My last question.
please.
Suggestion, I guess. So I don't know if we have any, I think you call them nests. in the city. I can't recall if I've seen them on the map, but I know there's an area near my community at the Giant Shopping Center which tends to gather. I don't know if that's a formal nest. It'd be nice if it is to have, I don't know if you have signs or pavement paint you can put down so people know this is a nest and here's where I bring it back. And because I know you sometimes offer a discount if you bring it back to a nest instead of.
Yeah, so what's visible to the rider is not what's visible to the fleet manager. So the fleet manager, there are nests that he or she would see in their app. So they would see a circle and a number like 6, meaning you can put 6 vehicles in that spot. That's how they see town. They would see numbers and where they can put them. So there probably is one there. The question would be, as soon as I get that address from Eric, he'll give that to me and I can take a look at it. But that is, those are the locations. Now, as far as signs and stencils, that's really up to the community. Because again, having lived here, I know there are a lot of restrictions on what you can do simply because of the historic nature of the city. So, signs, I was just like, why don't you put up signs? I'm like, I don't think that's going to go over well. And then stencils too, it's got to be washable paint, things like that. And depending on the property too. So if that property is privately owned, again, there's another, but I'm all for signs. If you wanted to do any of that stuff, I'd be happy to do that. Again, it would just be something that if the city was okay with it, we would certainly do that.
We did establish a nest at the Giant Shopping Center. So about a year ago, maybe a bit over a year ago, I think it was maybe with Jeremy's predecessor, we started talking about how to stage these vehicles in places like he was saying, outside of downtown, outside of Eastport, places where people would actually use them to go to jobs that might be downtown, and just basically where we had concentrations of residents that could use them. And so the shopping centers were one of those at the Giant Shopping Center, the Hillsmere Shopping Center, I think the Safeway on Forest Drive. We basically went through and looked at locations, and we picked some apartment complexes. And I think what the operator did, just the most straightforward way of doing it, was to use parking spots on the edge of the parking lot, close to. They picked a spot that was, I think, on Georgetown Road, and so if you're looking for the vehicles, you can see them on occasion there. But for somebody who's not accustomed to riding the vehicles, they might not see them, and so they're not going to necessarily pop out. I mean, certainly you'll see them on the app if they're there, but we've definitely discussed the idea of putting up signs in certain places to maybe make them more visible. I've been seeing them more often by the Hillsmere Library, right before the library there's been a cluster. That's been kind of another nest. But yeah, I think we can look at signage in places where we know it's not going to be as big of an issue,
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
No, Madam Chair, you asked the question. I wanted to see the breakdown of the bikes and the scooters as well. Okay, thank you.
I was just going to say, as a business owner, as well as a public servant, I know that my fellow
Can you tell us
business
your name?
owners are, what was that?
Can you tell us your name?
Oh, Brian Callahan, sorry, in the mayor's office. I know that many of the businesses downtown are having a hard time getting employees, and cost of parking or cost of a car itself. A lot of young people don't even have cars anymore. They Uber everywhere. Is a challenge, and I think in this first year and a half that we've been doing this, I think we've been planting some great roots that as we build out our bike network where people feel safer riding, because that's a hindrance. Some people are terrified to ride on our streets. As we build that out, it will be very beneficial to the businesses downtown with staffing. And I think some of the other challenges we have is the seasonality of our how busy our city changes in the summer versus in the winter. So I think we've been making good progress. I think it's a good program, but I do see a lot of opportunity that we need to grab and work on.
Thank you. I have one last question, I think, and my last question revolves around, when I kind of run the numbers, I just multiplied them by 3, thinking this is sort of the first third of the year. And it doesn't come up to nearly, barely half of the numbers from last year. Is there a concern about that, or were the largest percentage of riders and what made that number really high, was that in the summer months, or?
It definitely is. So your rides are happening from, April and May through probably into September and October. But yeah, there is a concern simply because the quantity of the vehicles isn't out. And so that's one of the things, one of the reasons why I've been talking to several people in town about possibilities of fleet managers and things like that, because again, we need to do better. We need to get more vehicles out. We need to get more bikes out, especially. And again, a lot of that falls upon our ops team. So I've been on our ops team. We were just texting when I was in the garage about we need to get them out. We don't have a lot of cities that basically where they're asking us to put out more vehicles. So it's one of those things of like they really, really want us to put more out. We need to get on it. So we are endeavoring to get more out in the next few weeks because, again, this is the opportunity to do it because the majority of the rides do take place between April and obviously into September. So now is the time for us to do that.
Okay.
Can I clarify one thing? I should have also introduced myself, Eric Lashinsky, Chief of Comprehensive Planning. Just to clarify, Bird by contract is allowed to have up to 150 vehicles, evenly split between scooters and bikes in the city. And then what we're aiming for ultimately is to be able to have about 100 on average on the street at all times. They go in and out of service based on maintenance and charging, but and that number is still relatively conservative, but we found that that's kind of the sweet spot so that they're not overburdening the city or they're providing a service and so we're trying to get back up to that and
that's spreading that out in the areas of town that you can see where there aren't just a lot of rides happening. That's taking advantage, that number to go from 64 to 100, spreading those 30 or 40 out in that radius. I think of an outer beltway, I think of a radius, that's where those should be. You're always going to get the rides down here. It's eliciting rides in those areas outside of town is what we're kind of looking for.
That was another challenge was the outside of town, Hillsmere, Parole, like they would cut off because of our city limits. But since you met, Bird came before you last summer, Eric and I helped work with the county to expand it into the county. So now you can go into Hillsmere and Parole. So that's a positive change and a challenge that's been hurdled.
Yeah, they used to stop at Solomon's Island Road. And so you'd see them parked right at the edge of the city. The other benefit to having more rides, the city gets a margin of the revenue from Bird. That's been a very good deal for the city. It's not a ton of money, but I think it's around $10,000 a year, and it goes into our trail fund. So is that right?
I think it's more like 20.
Okay.
more than that.
Okay.
It's
Good,
about
thanks.
5,000 a quarter. I think.
Okay. So that's been a really nice benefit of this program as well.
But we would like to direct that to benefit our bike ped programs and to help us with marketing or signage or the bird nest thing that you brought up, Alderman Savage. So I don't know if there's a way that we could kind of lockbox that money instead of just going into the fund. I'm not exactly
Well, so what happens is it doesn't go in, it does go in the general fund, but we, for reasons that are not totally clear to me, we have finance move the funds into the trail budget in the capital improvement program during budgeting season every year. So they basically look at how much Bird has transferred to the city, and then they move it at one time. It was just, I guess, it was easier than just creating a separate account.
Sure. Should have a question for-
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now I've got 3 questions. Number 1, I'll start with the latest one. How far west does Bird go?
I think to It certainly goes to the mall.
Oh,
So
okay.
basically, I'm thinking probably just to the edge of the, Bestgate and General's Highway. And I don't know how far down Defense Highway it goes.
Okay.
It might go to where the Best Buy. Yeah. It's,
The mall was really excited because a lot of their employees live in your ward, but have a hard time getting out to the mall. So they were very excited about the program.
Okay, good to know. The other thing is, do you all do surveys, take testimonials? Is that something you can share with us?
We do. We can run a survey if you'd like through the app. Absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be good to know because you'll know from the customers that you already have what they like and what they may need improvement on, but also based on that, how to gain more customers.
So if I may ask, does the city put out any surveys on their own, just in general for the population?
We just did a national survey.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm saying anybody that has the app will obviously get it. It's the folks that don't have the app we won't get any input from folks in wards that would like to have rides. They won't be able to respond to the survey. So
I mean, I guess you can do the same kind of, make another marketing tool. I don't know, this is my area of expertise, but to invite people who are using the bike. I don't know technology-wise how you would garner any feedback from that, tool to figure out what they like, what they don't like, what they could see improved, what might have others to use it. That's just kind of, like I said, that's your thing, and you know how to reach out best to your customers.
we can definitely do that.
It'd be good, and testimonials always work. That's really hard hitting, and we can hear that.
And I shared with Eric a testimonial that I had last year from the Middletown, Connecticut mayor. He had come here on vacation, and he and his wife rode birds around all weekend. And he thought it was the greatest thing in the world, and he reached out to us, and we started a program in Middletown last year
Okay,
because he came here and was riding in here.
well, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the kind of stuff that we like to see. But again, what I'll do is I'll share several surveys with the guys so they can take a look at the questions, run them by everybody to see if they're hitting the right notes on the questions. Generally, it's about an 8 to 10 question piece, and we generally do it after every ride.
Okay.
So, or at the beginning, we'll offer us $5 off their next ride or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
They complete
Great
the survey.
incentive.
Exactly. And so you elicit more responses that way.
Because it'd be good for us to see how we're doing and what we may need to tweak or change or overhaul or add or.
And in this market, I would add a question about, do you live here? Are you here visiting? Those kind of things, because then you get a better idea
Right.
of their responses and making sure you bucket that in the right place.
And improves your marketing strategy as well.
Yep.
The last question is, you were talking about the folks are not using as many bikes as they have been, and I know Mr. Callahan has a good relationship with a certain business on Chicopee Railroad that sells bikes. I don't know if maybe people are purchasing bikes. I don't know.
Since
Maybe.
COVID, bike sales have definitely skyrocketed.
Okay, well, that might be the reason why your bike usage might be down.
And if you, another reason too is if you put bikes and scooters in the same market, scooters will cannibalize the bike business
Okay.
all the time. Because again, it's the bikes generally listen a much longer ride, especially if it's an e-bike, an electric bike that automatically the battery engages as soon as you start pedaling. You generally aren't going to ride that for 4 or 5 blocks to a mile. The scooters are generally something that people will ride. So we generally see that. But again, given the size of the community and where I don't think we've given bikes enough of a shot. So we need to get more bikes out there, and we'll be able to discern some more data from what we see and where those rides are taking place, and the distances those rides are taking.
And that might be part of your survey to try to find out why bike usage has lowered in the past. And that might be something you might want to reduce your number of bikes, but increase your number of scooters.
Sure. And that's exactly the way we look at it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much.
Alderman Savage.
Thank you. Just quick, I would really encourage you to speak with the county council. This shows you how there's a lot of overlap between, and we need a lot of their cooperation as far as making this a completely viable system, because once you get right past Route 2 especially, it's very unfriendly for any non-automobile transportation. It's not safe. And so we need the county and the state to cooperate. But also for the Finance Committee colleagues here, this is one of yet another service that we are providing to county residents. It goes into parole, it goes into, I think, I've seen people take them into Hillsmere. I don't know how far down it goes on Bay Ridge Road, but we need to add this to our pilot, or whatever negotiations we have with the county as far as what our residents pay for taxes.
Thank you. Is that it for questions? Right. We really appreciate you coming out today. Thank you so much for that information. And we will have a copy of that
Yeah.
presentation.
Yes.
Did you get that? No, I may have only sent it to TV Studio. Okay. I'll
Yeah.
make sure you guys get
If you
it.
could just share it, that would be
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next up on our agenda is ID 1124, Transportation Board update with Kirk Regal.
I'm Kurt Regal, Chairman of the Annapolis Transportation Board. Greetings to the committee and to your +1.
Thank you.
Just a few items today. First of all, the committee, through one of our members, commented or responded to a request for public comment on a proposal to discontinue commuter bus service between Annapolis and Washington, D.C. And our position was that this is a useful service. It keeps a lot of cars off the road that would otherwise be there, contributing both to congestion and to environmental pollution. So we provided that public comment. The second item is a news item relating to bicycles on sidewalks. If you'll recall, our initial effort on this made a number of proposals, one of which was for a resolution by the City Council, which it did come through with, and things started happening bam, bam, bam as a result of that resolution. First of all, the city itself changed its rules with respect to that issue. The County of Anne Arundel also passed legislation conforming to our recommendation. And thirdly, the state introduced legislation that would flip the default setting in state legislation concerning bicycles on sidewalks. So we had successes 1, 2, 3. If you will recall, although the legislation passed easily, quickly, and with no opposition in the House of Delegates, when it got to the Senate, it languished for inattention, not because of opposition, just inattention. And it did not come to a vote for 2 years. For that reason, we drafted a resolution for the city to send that would buttress our prior efforts and get the Senate finally to act on this. You took the position that the city had already acted and therefore it wasn't our business anymore. I must remind you that the city of Annapolis is in the state of Maryland and you do have an interest in state law. I'm not sure that made all of the difference, but the third time around, I thought we were saved because we did get a cross-filing, an introduction of the same bill in the Maryland Senate. And I thought that was going to be enough to get it across the line, but again, for the third time, it did not come to a vote. I can't say for sure that the resolution that we requested of you would have made the difference to nudge it over the edge, but it's possible that it did. And I encourage you in all matters to remember that Annapolis also lives in Anne Arundel County and in the state of Maryland. You have an interest in what those governments do, and you have a right, indeed an obligation, to speak your minds on those subjects. The third thing I wanted to mention was, thanks to Marcus Moore, we have some good data on actual usage of parking permits and behavior in Parking District 5 in West Annapolis, and are finding that those data, in fact, reinforce our prior conclusion that the parking district is not only unnecessary, but also irrelevant to actual problems that exist. We will use those data to refine our prior recommendation to you and come back to you on it. And then finally, my fourth item and final item is more a question. At the last meeting, 2 meetings, you kindly responded to our recommendation that the city send a resolution to the state concerning the safe bicycle path on the Naval Academy Bridge. This is an example of where the city, according to you three sitting up there, was in fact willing to step forward and speak with respect to a state issue which affects Annapolis. And so the question is, I would wonder what the state of that resolution is, whether it's still being worked on, if you've seen a draft of it.
Alderman Savage, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, it's past due the law office's performance standard of, I forget how many days. It's past due. They're supposed to have gotten us that draft. They haven't, so I need to check back with them again.
Okay.
I think they're just busy with everything else with the budget, as are we. We're getting a lot of stuff drafted right now.
Right.
But I think, yeah, I'm sure it'll pass once we get it drafted.
Thanks very much. Anything else?
Any other question? All right. Yes.
Just on the other topics, I did hopefully get another board member for you. I know
Yay.
you have a number of vacancies. One of my neighbors who's an avid biker is interested in serving. So I passed along her information to Ms. Raftovich. On your first issue, what was the state legislation? What would the state legislation do again that you said failed?
There is a feature in state law which says that bicycles are banned from sidewalks unless there is local legislation which allows it. And our position basically of every bicycle advocacy group that we have consulted with is that that's just backwards. They should be allowed unless banned. And that was the recommendation that we made, and that is the legislation that was proposed and passed 3 times in the House of Delegates to flip the default from forbidden unless allowed to allowed unless forbidden. Is that clear?
So they already approved allowing bikes on state sidewalks on state roads, but this is a...
No, Annapolis is fine because Annapolis has overridden state law by passing its own ordinance. But if you step outside the city limits of Annapolis, and again, I remind you that bicycle riders who live in Annapolis do cross the boundary into state roads, suddenly the rules change. And
Well, that's what I'm getting at, because you said the county approved it.
yes.
So that means all the county roads, people can ride on sidewalks. I thought you said the state approved it for their own roads.
Anne Arundel County and the city of Annapolis are fine now because we have reversed the state default. Outside of that, that's no longer the
Okay.
case.
I must have just misheard you. I thought I heard that the state approved something on their own infrastructure, but you're saying maybe
No, the
not.
state,
Okay.
the House of Delegates has approved the reversal of the default as we recommended, but it has not passed the Senate, and so this obnoxious default still stands.
Understood. Yeah, and I think a good way to put it, because yes, we're part of the state, but the way to really make it clear to people is we have state roads running through the city. And so, although in this case you said we've already,
No, I think
we've
that's taken care
authorized
of.
it.
I believe, although state roads run through the city, I believe the city has authority over the sidewalks on those roads.
I don't think so. Because, I mean, typically any infrastructure under a state road is controlled by the state.
Well, that's an important
So I don't
legal
know.
point. I'd like to know the answer to that.
So the question would be if whatever we pass authorizes residents to ride on sidewalks on state roads, if they're in the city, I guess would that count as us passing something locally that would?
Well, I have assumed that everything within the city, whether it's state, county, or city road, is already covered. But if that's not the case, then the Office of Law should let us know.
Okay.
Alderman Del Charles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now I'm a little bit more confused. I just want to make sure I have this right. The city has passed a resolution indicating that you can ride your bike on the sidewalk in the city.
The city has passed an ordinance.
I mean, an ordinance, I'm sorry,
Yes.
an ordinance. The county has passed an ordinance say that you can ride your bikes on a
Yes.
sidewalk in the county.
Yes.
The state has not passed any legislation to say that you can ride your bike in the state, but because the city and the county have passed what they've passed, the state is not, for lack of a better term, involved.
The state has spoken on the subject. The state forbids it.
So what we've done and what the county has done doesn't matter? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it matters. The city and the county have overruled the state by adopting our
Okay,
ordinance.
so basically, we're covered when it comes to riding our bikes on the sidewalks in the city and the county.
Correct.
Okay. Now, with that being said, are you saying that we need to do something when it comes to the state overall?
The reason that the city and the county had to pass an ordinance was that the default was set wrong in the state.
Right.
And our recommendation was, yes, it's great to cure it for the city and the county, but we also think it's a good idea, and Annapolis should get behind a revision of state law so that the same default setting, allowed unless forbidden, applies throughout the state. That was our recommendation.
So is your argument the fact that we have people who ride their bikes in the city on the city sidewalks,
Mm-hmm.
those who ride their bikes in the city and ride on the county sidewalks, also ride their bikes in the state
Yes.
on state sidewalks?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I go back to the question of Alderman Savage. If you're riding your bike on Chickwapin Round Road, you're fine. If you ride your bike on Forest Drive, that's a county roadway, we're not sure. And if you ride your bike on West Street on a sidewalk, because that's a state roadway, we're not sure about that either.
Well, I hope that's not correct.
Right, but I'm saying we're not sure.
We're not sure.
Okay,
I
all right.
believe we are covered in the county and city right now, but it would be good to get an opinion from the Office of Law on that point.
Right, but what I'm saying is it's dependent upon who controls or operates or who's responsible for the sidewalks that are located, say, in the city. If they're city sidewalk, because the reason I'm asking this question, on West Street, because it's a state roadway, I really don't know, be honest, if there's something wrong with the sidewalk, period, if there's a big hole or something that emanated in the sidewalk, who would fix it? Would it be the state or would it be the city? If it's the state, then yes, then there is an issue.
Yeah.
Is that making sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, all righty.
I
So
think the
that's, I
matters
guess
of-
that's a public works question.
From matters of maintenance and so forth, I think it's a
Right, if
state.
there's a maintenance issue, who fixed the sidewalks on West Street?
Yes,
Because it's a state roadway.
But the behavior of persons and so forth, I believe, is controlled by the local authority, that's geographical rather than,
And the reason I'm asking that question because probably 80% of any question asked, the answer begins with an L, liability. So that's why I'm asking that question. Am I making sense?
yeah. Well, I will pose this as a question to the Office of Law and see if they have an answer.
Right, and that's what we're gonna do. So, thank you. I just want to make sure I was thinking it through correctly. Okay, thank you, Mr. Rico, appreciate it.
You bet.
Alderman Tierney.
Just really quickly, this is an example in the budget process. One of my colleagues has a recommendation that we have a lobbyist, and this, the frustration is we wrote a resolution in February of '21. It basically says, for the purpose of encouraging the Maryland General Assembly to amend state law to allow non-motorized wheeled vehicles on sidewalks by default. So the resolution is a document that exists. So I'm not sure what reissuing it would do. It's just a matter of lobbying the General Assembly next year, if that's where it fell through, right? Isn't that the best way to handle something like this? If they ignored
You said that was in 2021?
-21. Rhonda, you were a co-sponsor with me. No, it was the Transportation Committee at the time, because it was myself, Rhonda, and Brooks, and it was signed. And the intention was and I believe it was distributed to the General Assembly and all that, so that exists.
Right.
I don't know if
It may need to be updated, depending on what laws or legislation has occurred in the meantime. I don't know.
either.
I have no
Yeah,
idea.
our recommendation for a second resolution was merely to reinforce the first one and to cause that vote finally to occur.
Need a lobbyist.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, sounds good. We've got some questions for our Office of Law then. I appreciate the update. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Next up on our agenda is an update, ID 1624 from Annapolis Premium Parking. And Director Marcus Moore. And we'll go ahead and bring up SP Plus as well.
Yeah, good afternoon, Madam Chair, older persons of the Transportation Committee, and Alderman Ellie, Tierney. Yeah, we want to share with you some of the updates from our last meeting back in March. So first off, I want to talk about the Transportation Development Plan. We are working with the transportation planners called KFH Group. They're setting up some advisory groups that are stakeholders and actual advisory focused folks that actually use the service. As mentioned, the last one was done 5 years ago in 2019, and that report was presented to council, I want to say in the fall of 2019, for review and possible implementation of what was found. The two categories, as I mentioned, a stakeholder is basically, let's see what we have here. It's somebody from the Transportation Board, which Chairman Regal will have somebody from that event, somebody from the Anne Arundel County Chamber of Commerce, Hispanic community member, Anne Arundel County Office of Transportation, Annapolis Senior Center, business associates from the Downtown Annapolis Partnership, the Mall Housing Authority, HACA, Annapolis Town Center, somebody from our ADA community, churches and other folks around town, riders, visitor center, paratransit riders, Anne Arundel Lodge, and the school system. And that would make up the actual advisory, the stakeholders. The advisory will be a couple of our bus drivers, also somebody from HACA, other choice riders, and ADA community, members of the Transportation Committee, Educational Committee, and the like. So that process is starting, as mentioned. It can take about 6 or 7 weeks to do a very comprehensive study to reach all the aspects. I do have a copy of the last one, and I can email it to you for your perusal, and can see exactly what they're looking at. So part of this too, as you can see, we have Mr. Brendan Bodensteiner, who's market president with Premium Parking. He'll give some updates of questions that we had from the last meeting, and other findings from the survey and things that we're doing going forward. And Mr. John Kemp, Senior Regional Manager with SP Plus, want to give you some updates on Park Place and other things there, and we'll be able to entertain questions from you. So Brendan, if you'd like to start up.
Premium Parking, Brendan Bodensteiner, Market President, Maryland. So I'll start with updates on our focus group. We have completed our first 2 phases, starting with discovery into workshop. So our product team has actively developed several features as a result of this focus group and their feedback. Live right now, so it's already publicly available. Reservations now are able to start in 15-minute increments, both by app, which it always could by app, but also now by web browser, as that has been a favored channel by many of the residents utilizing our system for the resident permit program. We elected to go with 15-minute increments instead of every minute because the grace period is 15 minutes. So nobody is at risk of getting a citation within that window. And we didn't want to give an overly daunting list of options on a drop-down, 4 options every hour instead of 59. Live in our staging platform, so not available to the public yet, but developed and actively being tweaked. When you now hit the apply or check availability button, when applying a promo code, it will now tell you how many uses are left. So if you are a resident with a 10 24-hour passes per month code, if you've used 2, you're using your 3rd one for the month, it is going to let you know that you have 7 uses left. That is primarily going to impact the resident permit program because they're the ones that have codes that have multiple uses per single code. Also live on our staging platform, and I think this is the biggest one the community has asked for, is the multi-day passes. This also is going to impact the resident parking program, our permit program, as well as park, shop, and dine. What this is going to allow you to do is stack code uses. So I'm going to use the resident temp passes, which are 24-hour unit passes, as an example. And a resident can now, in a single transaction, purchase 48 hours, and it's just going to use that code twice instead of requiring that resident to do a 24-hour transaction and then completing a second 24-hour transaction because the code is programmed to not allow a use above that 24 hours. So now we can think about these codes almost like a digital punch card. If you have 10 uses, you can buy 10 days all in one single transaction, and it will fully consume that code. Also, we've taken off feedback from the council the last time we were here. We are also, as we are, drawing a conclusion to our focus group, we're going to get into, our last phase where we are demoing these polished products for final approval with the focus group, but we are going to take advantage of the success of this future, or of this focus group, and we're going to have more focus groups in the future. So we're going to run that. We're certainly going to reach out to the city to see if there are any targeted agendas or demographics that you would like us to do this. But it's been a huge success for us. I think it's been very successful for the city. Some very positive things have netted from this process, and we're only 2/3 of the way through. So we are going to continue with this program. Reminder, we have the upcoming permit season. So July 1st is all new permits. We will be sending a reminder digitally to all parkers that currently interface with our system utilizing a RPP product. So we will be sending emails out to everybody to request a permit for a new parker or somebody who does not remember how they did it last year. It can be found at annapolisparking.com. There is a blue residential permits button up top, followed by a red button labeled Districts 1 and 2 permits, and that will take you to the web form to supply the documents and the information we need to vet that request and issue it. Like last year, we will be submitting all 13 temp pass codes that they're entitled to. So that would be 12 monthly codes with 10 uses up to 24 hours, as well as the 1 annual code good for 25 uses up to 24 hours. So that will all be limited to 1 request, and we are going to give them everything that they need in that in that single request for that whole permit season. We will be leveraging shorter codes. That was a big request. So we're going to be using real words through word generators. Some behind the scenes technology. It will not impact, this is not anything the public will need to use, but essentially instead of having these long 14-digit codes, it could be something as simple as sale 24. Of course, it's going to change each month, but we're going to keep them as consistent as we can while still having enough variability to, keep these codes secure and keep the program working. Mystery Shopper, we are now 5 months into our Mystery Shop program. In December, we scored an 88.5. The things we were critiqued on is they requested a liability disclaimer sign, which has since been added. Phone numbers at exits, which have been added, but there's room for improvement, as you will see from the feedback from the additional scores, and phone numbers at pay stations, which we have labeled decals on both sides of the pay stations, on all 3 pay stations. However, we are working on finding some space on the face of the pay station to further enunciate our phone number and email. In January, we scored an 85.7. We were critiqued on not having name tags, which is something we don't do, but all of our employees are in bright red polos with company branding or bright red and black jackets. Although I will say we look dangerously close to a CVS employee, and we have been mistaken, and so have they. We were also asked to add an hours of operation sign, which we did, but it's not quite as effective as we had hoped. It's a little off the beaten path, so we will be looking for additional hours of operation signs targeted at the entrances. It'll probably be larger signage targeted for somebody to read while they're still in the car, while you can go with, smaller signs, finer print for the person looking for a sign once they've parked. We think this is a message that needs to be received immediately. And more rate lists. We did add them. They're at both entrances, but I think we're going to add rate lists at the pay station locations. February, we scored a 96.2. Again, the critique was trying to find the phone number. So our phone number's on all the distributed signage, but it is small. And the phone numbers are on our pay stations, but if you elect to go directly to a pay by phone option, you are not looking at the pay stations to find that number. So there's, again, room for improvement. We are still working with marketing to strategize where those signs are going to go, how big they need to be. In March, we scored an 84.4. The critique was they were uncertain on the receipt which location they were at, which it does print the address and P number, but we were going to make that more bold and into the header of the receipt. There was a printer issue, unfortunately, at the time. That has since been fixed, and we had been tagged by a graffiti artist the night before the mystery shopper came in on one of our extinguisher cabinets. And admittedly, we have a couple very active graffiti artists in the garage right now hitting the upper floors. So this is a daily battle that we're addressing. In April, we scored a 93.5, and the only critique was, again, finding that phone number. So phone number is really what we're focusing on in the garage right now. Customer service metrics in 2024, we received a total of 2,276 calls. Over 2,100 of those calls were successfully connected with our local dispatcher, with an average call time of 3 minutes and 20 seconds. There were over 3,030 digital requests. The request volumes from District 1 and 2 are down 50% from the year before. So we do think a lot of people are learning the program or do not need to reach out to us quite as frequently to resolve their own parking needs. 63% of all requests are Hillman related. 64% of all requests are appeals. These numbers will drastically shift with the upcoming permit season, of course. So through May, June, July, we're going to see a huge uptick in both phone and ticket requests. As a reminder, the best ways to reach us, we have a dedicated email, annapolis@premiumparking.com, and our direct phone number to our dispatchers here located in Annapolis is 410-216-5620. A reminder, we do have step-by-step guides for just about every workflow we offer here, both for our systems and Park Mobile. Please reach out to us at Annapolis@premiumparking.com, and we'd be happy to send any PDFs you want. We also have some video content, and we do have a tutorial on how to sign up for ChargePoint, the primarily used EV station in the garage. Park Shop Dine is live. To make a request, you can go to AnnapolisParking.com, click the drop down on parking locations, select Noah Hillman Garage, and there is a blue Hillman Validations button where you can make all validation requests, including the Park Shop Dine program. The Hillman waitlist. All of our waitlist members have been contacted, and we have offered them a Monday through Thursday monthly subscription at the price point of $110. If they opt in for this, they will not lose their waitlist position, and this has been described in the letter. So this is sort of a, hey, we know the waitlist is long, we can only add so many parkers. Primarily, that's because we have such peak demand on Fridays, Saturdays, and sometimes Sundays. We have open availability Monday through Thursday, so we worked with AIR, we worked with Medco, and got approved to offer this 4 days a week subscription at a significantly discounted price. We also hope that this can be a affordable option for many of the local business employees. Once we understand the volume of how many people on the wait list are going to opt in, we will open it up to the public because we do have such ample inventory on these days. I do not believe we're going to have to wait list this Monday through Thursday monthly subscription, so it should be readily available to anybody who wants it. Additionally, now that we're beyond legislative season, we're beyond some of the different changes we're dealing with, we'll be beyond the, the initial hurdle of offering this new subscription. We do believe in the next 30 days, we'll be able to add 20 to 40 new full-time monthly parkers at Hillman.
Great, thank you. I have one question. I'm going to go back up to your graffiti artist. Are there cameras in the garage?
No cameras currently other than our LPR cameras, which are not security cameras. However, I do know the city is actively working on adding a security infrastructure to the garage.
Okay, thank you. Rhonda Patel Charles?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If there are no cameras, have there been police reports filed?
So if it's a behavioral infraction, we do call APD. If we see skateboarders, people partying and drinking up on the rooftop, anything that is sort of out of our jurisdiction to police, we have not filed any reports ourselves, but we do actively communicate with APD, just as we do with some of our other tasks like towing.
As a retired prosecutor, oftentimes those tags were symbols for something else. And that's why I'm asking, if you file a police report, it may be connected to something else that we are all unaware of, but they may be aware of.
I will certainly work with APD and find a way how we can make that a quick, easy process, but ensure that that's getting done as we see the graffiti.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Savage?
Just one quick question. A neighbor actually brought this up regarding the parking garage. Do you have anything in place to protect against QR scamming? I was told that some places, scammers can put fake QR codes that'll take you to an app and take your financial information.
So yes, we do a couple things regarding QRs. I know gas stations and parking operations are specifically targeted on these types of things. Recently, Baltimore City had some issues, so I know in the area this is a high sensitivity. One, our QRs are generally bigger than where QRs are getting spoofed. Two, we actually print our URL on the side of the QR, which is a detail most scammers do not pay attention to. Daily, we have patrols that are going through and they're dragging their fingers for a sticker over the signs. So if we ever have to overlay a QR, that is a temporary solution, and we will always replace the sign for a permanent QR. And finally, weekly, we have a manager who scans the QRs to actually check the URLs that those QRs are taking you to the appropriate place.
Thank you. Alderman Tierney.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, and let me say that their enforcement does work, because when I drove my husband's monster car, I forgot that he, so yes, I got ticketed every day. Thank you. Yeah, it works. Enforcement is good. My question is lessons learned from the renewal process last year. Do you have a map of District 1 and 2?
The map is available at AnnapolisParking.com. We can certainly, if you think that's of value, we can certainly include that in our letter, which will go out June 1st.
Yeah.
But the biggest lesson learned is communication, communication, communication.
Yeah, okay. All right. And I had it wrong. I thought it was support@premiumparking.com. Was it at one point, or?
What's that?
I thought it was support@premiumparking.com.
So we actually have a dedicated email now just for Annapolis, where everything gets routed directly to our team, which is Annapolis@premiumparking.com.
Okay.
Support@premiumparking does work.
Yeah.
But that's going to go through corporate, go through a couple automations. Our team will reach it, but that reaches a greater audience. So to target our local team to make sure it gets to us absolutely the fastest, Annapolis@premiumparking.com is the best email to use.
Maybe I did know that. I don't know, but that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, Alderman Tierney, what happened, I think in the fall, that's something they asked, because it would go to other areas.
And they thought
then
that-
we decided, that was one of the things that their marketing came up with, to make it just for specifically. Somebody put in the title or the subject line, Annapolis, it helped out a lot, but sometimes that wasn't even there. And it did, sometimes it got through very quickly, but sometimes it could take a week.
Support was working.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it does work. If somebody uses that, it'll still get to them.
Okay.
One of the other things I want to talk about, the $110 a month for the Monday through Thursday. If somebody used it every single day that they could, which would be about 20 times in a month, it's $6.85. So, it's one of those things that, it could be used by other people, not just one person. So a wait staff person or somebody who works just a couple days a week, and then somebody else works a couple, they can kind of split and use it that way. Just remembering, like our subscriptions that we have here, you can have up to 3 vehicles, only one in at a time. The second one will get ticketed. So just in case somebody uses a spouse's vehicle, they can still put that one in and not have to worry about changing things out along the way.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'd also like to follow up on your advice for the maps in the letter, and that does touch a point that we are working on. I do understand there's some confusion, especially residents living on Main Street or on Maryland Avenue, not understanding where the residential permit program is valid and what is actually a commercial street. So we are working on rebranding on-street signage. So one of our revelations is almost all of our calls, as it relates to on-street parking, has to do with a Park Mobile question. So we are just, by putting our contact information on, we are just becoming a middleman for a system we're not really managing and can't always resolve. So we are going to rebrand these signs, Annapolis, City of Annapolis. They are going to have Park Mobile information. So because your parkers are interfacing directly with Park Mobile, they will be able to reach Park Mobile customer service directly. Part of those signs will very clearly now indicate what district they're in, where that starts and where that stops at the end of the blocks, to get rid of all of this confusion and take the onus off the resident to try to log in online, read these maps, and decipher, some of these trickier areas that admittedly can be pretty confusing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there an update? We have on here Park Place 2.
Yes, Kemp will take us.
Good afternoon, John Kemp, SP Plus. So we are well underway, almost complete with the hardware installation. So there was networking and cabling that had to occur. There's some long runs in that very large garage up at Park Place. Cameras are being finished up today. There's some loop detector cuts that are being adjusted in the lanes today as well. The camera configuration will be completed tomorrow, and the installation of the kiosk where users can pay with a credit card will be installed tomorrow. And then from there, things get turned on and testing begins. Directional adjustments need to be made. We need to make sure that things are as they're intended to be in varying light conditions. There's probably some software updates that need to flow through the payment kiosk, which has been dormant for a while. And various testing, of course, on all the transactions that one could perform with validations as a frequent parker, if you will, as a monthly parker, et cetera. So we have a press release with the city communications team being reviewed, and anticipate that'll go out at an appropriate day. I don't want to say it's going to necessarily go out tomorrow or the next day, but I think it'll be finalized by tomorrow. And of course, that'll indicate a date by which we're live. Testing is generally a week long. So I think functionally things will be operating next week, but we're, going to make the appropriate "we're live" message out to the public through the city when we finalize that date. There are additional communications that we've undertaken with, of course, the tenants of the building and the frequent users of the building. We've got communications that we're going to ask for some of your help with on pushing out to residents as it pertains to their 2-hour validation. And again, we'll also be communicating out how validations work. We've already been underway communicating out to validations for merchants who, both on the footprint, but also merchants nearby whose employees use the garage. And of course, there's various merchants and organizations around the city whose employees use Park Place, and thus a validation, and then catch the circulator, walk, bike, etc. from down there. Sounds like we have a question. It looks like we might have a question.
Just a
Yeah, and I have a few more updates here, but I'll pause as I think we'll be getting some questions.
My burning question is this, and we talked about it a little bit back in March. If I am a merchant doing the Shop Dine program, and I shop at Scout on whatever that's called, on West Street or on Main Street, and I'm parking in Noah Hillman Garage, I'll get a code to take off a percentage of that. But if I'm parking in Park Place, it's a whole different code, but I might shop at the same place. Like, to me, that's very confusing because you're using a different parking app than what Hillman is using. And how are we working that with the merchants?
So my proposal is that I think if the merchant asks the customer, did you park, in one of the garages? Yes, I did. Where did you park? I'm not sure how they're exactly distributing the Park Shop and Dine today for Hillman. But if the response is Park Place and in the not too distant future, GOTS or Knighton Garage, here you go. And it wouldn't be a different validation type or a different drawer one would have to go into for all 4 of those locations, but rather Noah Hillman. And then I can't speak to how that validation is being distributed from the merchant to the user. But they could simply reach into the other pile, the non-Hillman Garage pile, and hand that user the QR code that they'll scan and apply to their session.
Okay.
And it would be the same QR code for all the other garages versus, like I said, it wouldn't be a Park Place QR, a Knighton QR, a GOTS QR. It's one QR with the same rules applying to the city-owned garages.
So we're giving.
Same with the
credit-
resident too, by the way. So as a resident, if you're seeking to use your 2-hour validation, you'll have a code specific to you, and it'll work in any of the 3 garages once the other 2 are online, of course.
Nobody else thinks that that's confusing.
Well, I'm not sure. How is the merchant distributing? How does a user get a validation to the Noah Hillman garage from the merchant?
They get a ticket, right? That has a QR code on it.
So we have the request form, and we allow the merchant decide if they want their coupon or code to be good for 1 hour up to 4 hours. The price per hour does not change, but we understand, a general goods store where somebody's out in 20, 30 minutes, they're going to want each customer to have a 1 hour code, whereas Harry Brown's or somewhere, where you're dining, you can easily spend 3+ hours. So we're giving them the option to elect in the duration. They also have the option to manage these codes themselves and decide how they're going to distribute that code to their guests, or we will pre-print them on business cards with brief, a 3-step direction, and they can just hand that off immediately to their guests.
Okay. I am not confident that it's going to go smoothly.
No.
I just have to put that on the record. Alderwoman Tierney.
Sorry to detour to the Park Shop and Dine. I was a little concerned that, our economic office was asking about the program. So I would highly recommend that we elevate that program, get it out there specific to Hillman. I mean, the fact that Hope asked during the meeting today, is there any way that we can do that?
Yep, we've actually worked with Downtown Annapolis partnership to, or partnership to distribute flyers, and they have included it in their own letters. So we've been working with Eric on that. There's not been a ton of activity behind it, but we do think it's a seasonal product where it should start taking off pretty soon.
Okay. But Director, could you make sure Stephen Rice and Hope know the program is up and running?
Definitely will.
Yeah, and then the question, this is an ignorant question on my
Mr.
part.
Regal.
Bye-bye.
No, he has a question for
Jury duty. Is there anything we do special for them, or they just?
Yep, there's a juror parking program at Park Place, and there's a validation that's set up, and we've got outreach to them.
So that will just keep going via?
Yep. Yeah, no change to the parameters of the program. It gets easier for everybody because we're not printing out paper and they're not having to request paper or send someone in person to the office to come get anything like that. This is all done via.
And of course, we're accommodating the Bridge Club at Park Place. That's a little joke there, okay? So, joke.
I will say culturally, let's say parking culturally, it has been however long, right, since merchants have been able to distribute a Park Shop and Dine to the Hillman garage. That's not necessarily a good thing, if you will, but rather prior to that, there's always been a separation in. It wasn't at the 3 downtown garages, if you want to call them that, but there was one coupon or ticket type that worked in that particular parking equipment, but a different code was always a different validation was always necessary for Park Place. So this isn't a real change from that perspective. It won't, to the user who gets parking validations for the other garages and Park Place, they were having to get them separately, up to, as far back as I can recall.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Savage.
So just to confirm, you're going towards gateless in all the garages?
Correct.
Okay. And so for residents, there's going to be a code to scan if you're going out to business. The businesses will give you that to scan to get the 2-hour discount.
I think. Well, allow me to clarify. You said residents, right? Residents have. There's a residential.
Customers. Yeah. Customers then.
Okay,
Yeah.
customers, not residents.
Yeah.
They'll
So they
go to-
get a QR code to
They'll go to the merchant will
Right.
say, we validate parking. They'll communicate that however they do today. And rather than hand them a chaser ticket, a piece of paper that they would insert into into the exit lane after inserting their entry ticket, they'll scan that QR that's either posted up by the merchant, or they'll be given a slip of paper where you can distribute them both ways
Okay.
to the merchant.
And for residents, is there the 1-2 hour free
Yes,
program?
correct.
And what do they do?
And you'll have, so as a resident, they'll have their own code specific to them, and it'll work at Park Place. And as we roll out, as we open up GOTS and Night and Garage, that same QR, we won't have to send you a new one, but that same QR code will work in all three.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess it's my same question I have had for premium. I mean, you presumably are going to use license plate readers,
Yep.
and you have everybody's information as they come and go as far as local address. So can't you just use license plate readers if you live locally, you get the first 1-2 hours free automatically. You don't have to scan a code.
So you would think so, right? The logic, what I'm told on the back end as of now, as we sit here, the logic is not there yet to take that that plate and apply a validation, but it is on the roadmap.
Okay, well, it's good to hear, because I think for our call is 90-some% accurate.
Yeah.
At least some of the technologies.
Right.
So it seems like it'd be possible to do.
Yeah, it would, right? I mean, you've got coding. You would think you take this series of alphanumeric characters and run it up against a test of do they get a special? Is there an additional special attachment to that? You know, to this set of alphanumerics.
The other question on that is what pace? How do I word this? What pay system are you using as far as? Are you still following a model where it's you're charged per hour like you currently are, or is it going to be what premium currently does, which is if you overstay, you get charged the maximum automatically?
So it is on demand. So there's, and we talked a little bit about this in our last call, in our last visit here, and I suspect we'll talk about this more as we continue to roll out to the other locations. So this is on demand, just like you're at a meter on the street. You choose an amount of time. You will get prompted if you wish to extend your time. But I will say there's an update to the features from the last time we were here. And for any frequent or semi-regular users, and this will be in the press release and other communications as well, residents in particular fit this bill. So the residents who might be parking for 4 hours, of course, they're enjoying the 2 hour worth of time at no cost, and they're frequent, right? We hope. By establishing an account at parking.com, they will be able to experience the garage as you're asking about, and that is as a monthly parker, meaning you wouldn't have to select any amount of time. You'll just be able to come in and exit, and you'll be charged the amount of time that you stayed without engaging the system at all, other than to apply your validation until we get the code fixed, until the code is implemented on the logic to.
So you'll be doing that for residents?
No, we'll be using, that'll apply to anyone who chooses to set up a profile at parking.com.
Okay, I understand.
And we're going to strongly encourage residents to do that. And I think once any user sees, any regular or semi-regular user sees that, I think that they'll be quite pleased. There won't be any overstaying or any of that.
Well, that's certainly a benefit, because I was afraid we were going to get even more complaints. I mean, it'd be nice, if premium could adopt something like that too, because we still do get some of the complaints about. I know it looks like it's relatively rare, but
the key impediment, I will say, it doesn't have to be done that way. When I say on demand, the other way is the other term I'll reiterate is digital ticket. So that's the experience I described after, where I'm entering at a certain time, I'm exiting at a certain time, and however long that time is, that particular rate per the fee schedule applies. The only impediment to just doing that and is the fact that it's seen as still fairly necessary to accept some other form of payment, thus a kiosk. If you didn't have to have the kiosk, you would not have to deal with the on-demand nature of it. It's that variable that forces the on-demand nature of the platform. Meaning I have to pick an amount of time.
Okay. Thank you.
There was, so we talked, I'm glad you asked that question because that's one of the features I wanted to make sure we covered. And that's it. Yes, there was a request, I think, as we talked, to make sure that Park Mobile was an option for users, and it will be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Alderman Del Charles.
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you so much.
Great. I really appreciate the updates, and thank you very much for addressing a lot of the concerns through the focus group and through our residents. I know it's been a work in progress, and I'm thankful that you're working so hard and helpful for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience as we do work through it.
Sure. Now she has a question.
Well, a comment. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, I will say that the ratings, I don't know what they were before, but they do seem very impressive. And so that's a big step forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I also earlier on failed to recognize Pantha sitting in the back. Thank you. Welcome. And I'm sad to say I don't know the other gentleman in our audience.
I'm Jason.
Oh.
And I'm flying over today.
I couldn't recognize you from there. Thank you. All right. Is there anything else for good of the order?
Yes.
Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I need to issue an apology. I searched my email, and the law office did send me the legislation. I was going to apologize to Mr. Regal, too. So I apologize to them. And for the record, the law office did send us that legislation regarding the Navy Bridge. So I'm not meeting my own performance standard, apparently. So in any case, for the committee, I think if we could take a look at this before Monday, we might want to add this to the agenda on Monday.
All right.
Manually. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. There's nothing else. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.